Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, what I'm going to talk about in this video is there's been a new interview that's come out with Sheriff Nanos. In the Nancy Guthrie case, of course, that's what we're talking about. Well, where does Sheriff Nanos how does he decide who he's going to do these interviews with? And now I'll explain to you what I mean by that, because I mean it's a good interview, but he's being interviewed by a very sort of young, up and coming sort of YouTuber. Is it that the YouTubers reach out to Sheriff Nanos and he either decides yes or no? Apparently, he's been refusing to be re-interviewed by Brian Ensign. Brian Ensign keeps saying he won't be interviewed again by him. But he's decided to do this interview with this very, very young, looks almost embryonic YouTuber who's been interviewing since he was 11 years old. So he obviously, I don't know how he got into sort of doing these interviews, etc. And he's very good. It's a good interview. But I just wonder, how does Sheriff Nanos decide who he will give an interview to and who he won't? Because, of course, he doesn't do any what you would call a press conference, does he? He never gets up on stage and does a press conference, not since the first week, really, or 2 weeks of this case, where Nancy Guthrie, just to remind people in case they don't know, 84 years old, disappeared from her house in Tucson, Arizona, in the middle of the night. Poof, like a ghost in the night. She was gone. Nobody knows what happened to her. So, Sheriff Nanos is a strange one, isn't he? He does his, what's the word, media interviews, but he picks and chooses who he does the interviews with, and they're all individual. He doesn't get on the stage with the FBI and do a collective press conference. He literally did one right in the beginning, one or two possibly. Anyway, so that's something we're going to talk about. What do you think the reason is for that? And we're going to react to this interview. I'm going to show you the YouTube channel. I'm going to encourage you to go over there and subscribe to the guy. I hope he doesn't copyright strike me, but it is fair use, to react to an interview. I'm sure he won't. Most normal people who are YouTubers don't copyright strike people when they're just using their interviews as a commentary, except for the twat that has copyright struck me. I'm going to talk about that, how that's progressing. But we know he's an idiot, don't we? We know he's an idiot. I'm going to talk about that in the member. I'm going to do a members live tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock Spanish time. And during that interview, I'll be talking about the progress in that YouTuber who seems to have decided he wants to take my channel down for some unknown reason, just a pathetic little hissy fit that he's had, to about a 50-second part of his video from 2 years ago. The video I put out that included of his stupid video, and just as a commentary, I wasn't saying anything bad about it. He decided he wanted to copy me for that 2 years later. So anyway, it's all being dealt with, and I'll let you know. I'll let the members know tomorrow night what's the progress is. You get sad sometimes, don't I? Because of true crime is sad when you're talking about true crime. But if you notice that I'm a little bit sad today, today's the funeral of my sister Sue, who died a couple of weeks ago. This year has just been a disaster for many different reasons, but most The most important reason is losing my sister, even though, she had been ill for a while. She's had dementia for 6 years. Um, and luckily she's been being looked after by one of my nieces. Thank God she had one daughter who cared about her. But very sadly, a couple of weeks ago, she did pass. And it's her funeral today. And I can't be there, but I will be watching live by live link. I've been sent a live link. But it's not the same as being there. You want to be with the rest of your family as well, don't you? On times like this. I know exactly what will happen. It'll be sort of sad, people will be crying, then they'll be laughing because they'll be talking about funny stories. This is how it is, isn't it? Funerals, that's how they should be. You have to remember the good times and the funny stories, but also, of course, you're sad because that person, has moved on to the next plane. So, anyway, so yeah, a little bit of a sad day. I'll be talking about that tomorrow in the members as well. God bless Sue. God bless. Anyway, what else did I? So I've got a little bit of waffle to go into before we get started. My channel, you'll know that there's a little bit of waffle on the lives. I will then edit this video and upload it on my other channel. Maybe even on this one as well, without the waffle. Some people don't like waffle, I understand that. Okay, so first of all, I want to say my thank yous. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, hyping. All these are free ways you can help my channel if you want to. If you don't want to help my channel, that's fine. Go and watch another one. I literally don't care. I only care about the lovely people, the lovely followers that I have. Thank you for all your lovely comments, particularly about my sister and, personal things like that. You're so supportive. It really does help when people are supportive like that. Thank you. And then, of course, some of you go a little bit further. We've had a few new memberships lately. Thank you for becoming members. My members are the mainstay of my channel, really. So, it's a very important, my membership is very important to me. Thank you to those of you buy Ko-fis or send PayPals or send nice emails, or as I say, leaving comments is also free. Free ways you can help my channel. Not 3 ways, but free ways. Yeah. So thank you. What else did I want to say? What else? So yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted this morning. I nearly had an accident this morning in the car, and it was completely my fault. I nearly went the wrong way. I was thinking about my sister's funeral, and the sun was high in the sky. The sun was dazzling my eyes, and I nearly went the complete sort of wrong way. But then I stopped, and there was a car behind me. Anyway, and then number one son's going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't even know. Just a mistake, as we do make mistakes. I think most accidents that happen when you're distracted thinking about other things. I was thinking about my sister's funeral and how I wished I was there, etc. So yeah, you may see that I'm a little bit distracted today. I'm sorry about that, but I know you'll understand. I know 100% you'll understand. What else did I want to say? Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot. So for those of you who don't know, I am also in my other life a Spanish teacher. I've been teaching Spanish for 20 years, over 20 years. And I've written 5 books on learning Spanish that are all available on Amazon. Amazon, wherever you are in this crazy world. Vicky Marie Riley, or it might just be Vicky Riley, I'm not sure. Vicky Riley, Break the Language Barrier. This is level 1, but there are 5 levels. So there's a level for anywhere you are with Spanish if you want to learn Spanish. They're explanations in English. They're very logical, easy to understand. You can always email me for advice or for answers or explanations. But people tell me they're quite well explained. There's an answer key. So, who wants interested in learning Spanish? Break the language barrier levels 1 to 5 on any Amazon site, wherever you are in this crazy world. The other books that I've got available, this is a confession teacher. This is the book that if you want to know more about me as a person, how I ended up coming to live in Spain, how I ended up being interested in true crime, etc., then this is the book, Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, Vicky Riley. Again, available on any Amazon site. And people tell me it's interesting. It's an interesting read. So actually, I've just started reading it again. I like to read it sometimes because little bits that I've forgotten. You know, when you get to my ripe old age, you can't remember everything. What's the other thing I wanted to tell you about? Oh yeah, on my Ko-fi page, let me take that banner off. On my Ko-fi page, that's where my shop is. I have merch on there on the Ko-fi page. You can buy mugs, you can buy wine glasses, bottle of wine, t-shirts. There's a lot more things I need to upload on there, but I just haven't had time recently. Thank you to those of you who've supported my channel in that way, ordering a mug or, you know, just a t-shirt, etc. There's all different ways you can order it. I can customize anything that you want, you know, to whatever saying you want on there. You know, maybe may your God go with you, or I'm not in the mood for twonks today, or a personal message. Or you can also have a personal video made, you know, which could be a take on a crime, or it could just be a personal birthday message or something like that, whatever you want. All that you can find on my Ko-fi page, which I'm just going to... Actually, I think I might put that in the chat as well. Yeah, that's my Ko-fi page, and you can find my shop on there, etc. Anyway, and thank you to all of you that have already bought merchandise, etc. Thank you. Where am I now? So hello, you lovely lurkers. Thank you so much for watching. My lovely lurkers are the ones who watch the lives but don't necessarily want to join in the chat. They just like to watch. Also, hello to replay crew, for those of you who don't manage to watch the lives but watch afterwards. Thank you so much. And now I'm coming into the actual chat itself to see all you. So the other free way, of course, you can help my channel is by joining in the chat. Anything that gets the algorithm going is always a positive thing. So hello, Katie. Oh, my namesake. There's a Katie Riley. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for your commiseration. It's just one of those things, you know. But she wasn't that. She's quite a bit older than me, so she was 76 years old, my sister, which is no age these days. But she was suffering from dementia. But also, there's a bit of an inquiry about it. Like there may have been some negligence involved, which is quite sad because she just moved from one care home to another one, and you know, I mean, the thing is, she was never going to get any better. But she, maybe he had another 5 good years in there. But anyway, what's done is done. Nothing you can do about it, is there? So we're going to look at this. I don't know if any of you have seen this interview or heard of it. It's very new. It only happened last night or yesterday. It was released. Let's have a look at the YouTube channel. So why do you think, so going back to what I was asking earlier, what do you think makes Sheriff Nanos? How does he choose who he gives interviews to and who he doesn't give interviews to? Because this YouTube channel, it's popular. It's got 13.2 thousand subscribers. So it's called the Sharp Exchange. And I'm going to read out to you what he says his mission is, if you like. But yeah, why did Nanos choose this YouTube channel as opposed to any other YouTube channel that has more subscribers, for example? I don't understand Nanos at all. Because also, I mean, it's, you know, this lad, you can see by looking at him, he's so young, so very young, which is good. It's good to have young people sort of engaged in finding answers about crimes. And he doesn't only talk about true crime, he talks about a lot of different things. So let's see how he describes himself. The Sharp Exchange. What's his description? So the Sharp Exchange is a next generation political interview platform founded by Wyatt Sharp, a young journalist who began engaging with global political figures at just 11 years old. How did that happen? By 17, he had conducted over 500 interviews, including high-profile conversations with leaders such as Justin Trudeau, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Nancy Pelosi, and Gavin Newsom. So he's done a lot of interviews. Now, I don't know, because I'm just going by the people he's interviewed. Is he on the liberal side? Is that why Nanos agreed to an interview with him? Because Nanos, of course, is a Democrat. And I noticed that these people that he mentions here, though Robert F. Kennedy is not a Democrat, is he? But Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Justin Trudeau is a liberal, isn't he? Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom. So, he's from Canada, not from America, Canada. So he's Canadian. Actually, I did notice that as he was interviewing, his accent, you can tell the difference, can't you, between an American accent and a Canadian accent. So he's had his YouTube channel since 9th of December 2020. He has 13.3 subscribers and he's done 407 videos. So yeah, just my question would be, why did Nanos choose? You know, nothing, I'm not saying anything against this lad. I don't know, you know, he seems like very good to me from what I've seen of him. Just strange, isn't it? Why did Nanos choose to do an interview with him, but he won't do an interview with Brian Entin, for example? Odd. He's an odd bod, Nanos, isn't he? But anyway, we're going to watch the interview. And I'm going to react to it. So it's had 4.6 thousand views. as I say, I hope he doesn't react to comments. I'm not trying to pass it off as my interview.
Investigation and seemingly not.
So he's for the next generation. So he makes quite a bit out of the fact that he's the X generation X. I don't really like all these descriptions of different generations because to me, it's another way of dividing the population. You know, you've got some people, they're boomers or they're Generation Z or Generation X or what will the next generation be? God knows. But what I'm trying to say is, to me, when you divide, be it religion, be it ethnicity, be it gender, you know, that's how ruling classes rule. Divide and rule. Divide the people underneath you, and they'll never get together and overtake you. I mean, for example, in the UK, instead of blaming the royal family for things, you know, an elite ruling family in what's supposed to be a democracy, it is just definitely not a democracy. People look sideways, don't they? Oh, it's the immigrants' fault. Oh, it's the single parents' fault. Oh, it's Generation X's fault. It's the millennials' fault. It's Generation Z's fault. It's the boomers' fault. You know, people, I don't like these divisive things. So that's just one thing I want to say. But so he prides himself on a platform for Generation X. You know, young people have always got a contribution. But so have older people. You know, I don't know why people can't understand that everybody has a contribution to make to society. You know, older people have experience and long memories. They remember things that happened years ago. And then young people have got new ideas in the new world that we live in that, you know, it's hard sometimes to understand when you're from a different generation. We should all be working together to make the world a better place, not like, oh, it's those boomers did that, or it's those Generation X that's they're responsible for everything. We should all be working together. And I love hearing what young people have got to say. You know, sometimes they give you a completely different view on things, you know, that you'd never even considered because, you know, we are all products of our generation. You know, we've all come through, you know, I'm sort of, I'm not a boomer. I'm generation, is it, what would it be, Z or something? I don't know what I am. I'm like on the edge of the boomer type thing. I don't consider myself a boomer, but I think I'm in my birth date was in like the last year of the, what they call the boomer generation. I think I'm Generation Z. I think so. I have no clue, but I don't care. I am just me. I'm just Vicky Marie Riley. I am a product of my environment. You know, not only my generation, but the upbringing I had. You know, is like couldn't have been more working class than you. You know, it just you know, my father. He actually, in his living memory, remembered children being sold under the arches in Manchester. And I've been watching a few videos lately about the workhouses. My dad was paranoid about the workhouse. If you didn't pay your rent, you could end up in the workhouse. You know, most new generations now, they wouldn't even have a clue what a workhouse was. But these aren't that long ago. You know, they're within sort of same time as the war. People are obsessed with the Second World War, but the workhouses were just around product of our generation in one way. But we can learn from each other. There are things that we should never forget, that we should never return to. You know, sometimes I think, God, we're going to be going back to putting children to work soon. You know, like the poverty, the financial gap between the rich and poor, especially in the UK, etc. You know, it's just terrible that children are living in food poverty in 2026 in Britain. Terrible. Anyway, that's for another video, isn't it? So this is the guy, and he interviewed somehow
The Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos to discuss this.
Couldn't get more opposite in their ages, could you? I mean, I'll say he looks about 12. I'm sure he's older than 12. I don't know how old he is. What is he, 18, 19? Maybe very, very young guy. And Sheriff Nanos, of course, isn't he in his late 70s? I mean, he looks well for his age, but they're complete opposite ends of the age spectrum. So, you know, why did Sheriff Nanos agree to an interview with this young lad? Is it because his leanings are left wing? I don't know. And of course, he's Canadian. So there's lots of American podcasters out there that probably would love to have an interview with Sheriff Nanos, but he won't do it. But he wanted to do this, so I'd be interested to know why. But anyway, let's have a look. So I'm going to play the video. It's about half an hour long. I'm not going to comment too much. Every now and again, I will comment about things, but I can't stay on too long. So I've got my sister's funeral, sadly, I'm going to join in live on that later. So let's see. And you, as always, comment. Let me know what you think. Come on.
And I'm going to start out, obviously, with the generic question, and that is this Saturday marks the 6-month mark into this investigation, August the 1st. Are we any closer to figuring out kind of the main suspects here, or just getting, closer to finding out what the state of this investigation could potentially become, and how frustrating is it to, be this the answers that you're looking for?
So that's more than one question. So let me back you up. One, are we closer? I think every day we're closer, only because we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of lab work, scientific work with DNA, working with not just our lab or the FBI lab, but labs across the country. All of these labs work together. They're sharing information, their best to find a way to get the science to work, to put together a variety of different DNA evidence to suspect that. So just last week we had addicted of a homicide in Pima County. And in less than 24 hours, we had 3 arrests made. The case was solved, and he's been prosecuted and convicted. But those kinds of cases are rare. I mean, we're a very large metropolitan area, and we have over 1 million people, 7th largest county, and this agency's team, our homicide team, works hard every day. And they were able to put together a case that quick. However,
so yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is a very strange case. Nanos obviously is at pains to say, they just recently solved another homicide very quickly and blah, 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 blah. But Nancy's, we don't even know it's a homicide. This girl, or this woman, sorry, she disappeared into a puff of smoke, blood left on the porch, alleged ransom notes received, but are they genuine? Was she kidnapped? It's such a mystery, isn't it? And you'll see that Nanos actually says during this interview, he seems to suggest there's quite a lot of DNA that they're working on. But apart from that DNA and apart from the videos, which have yielded no, the video on the porch guy, that has yielded no clues as far as we know. Nobody's come forward to say that they know who it is, or nobody believable. After all these months, there is just still supposedly nothing, no progress in this case. Brian Ensign said, and a few other podcasters have said that as far as their sources tell them, there has been no progress in this case. Well, I don't know.
We also have what we know as our cold case unit. And cold case teams are all across the country for a reason. It's because we don't let cases just go cold and not continue to work them. The question was asked of me, is this case cold? It is not cold.
No.
We have a lot of evidence that, like I say, our scientific labs are working. There's video evidence that we continue to work with, not just labs, but also some private corporations who have graciously given their time to help look at some of the video evidence and see if we can't piece things together.
Right.
And of course, there's literally thousands of tips that come in. Certainly, they're not coming in at the rate they were initially, but we still get them. In fact, I was just on an email with someone from Ireland who had a tip.
Okay.
All of these things are sent to the Guthrie Task Force, which consists of frustration as it is the community. And I understand that the community wants to know everything. This isn't TV. This is real life.
Of course.
In an hour's time, there's not a commercial break and we've got it solved.
Yeah.
We continue to work this case every day and get some resolution, but unfortunately those things just sometimes take time.
You mentioned the cold cases a little bit from the beginning of the investigation. Sure. I want to kind of follow up on that and just ask you, I know it's hard for you to quantify that, but to what extent are you willing to say that they have slowed to a trickle? They have slowed down, and has that made it perhaps harder to kind of get to a good quality lead? Or if you have fewer, does that perhaps mean they are of greater quality?
No, I think that, like any crime, you first get it, you put it out there, everybody's attentive and they're calling in and they're giving you tips. But as time goes on, those tips do shrink. The volume lessens, and I don't think it's because there's apathy or we just don't know. I think it's because people have given us their information and they're moving on.
Now, what we must remember here is that Savannah Guthrie has put up over $1 million. There's over $1 million reward for information leading to finding Nancy, or finding out what happened to Nancy. And that was quite a while ago when Savannah put all that money up. So to me, now to be months down the line and still nobody's come forward when there's a massive reward like that out there, you just think, well, there's nothing to say, or nothing that anyone's going to say. Because if they won't say it for $1 million, they're never going to say it, are they? Unless there's a big change in circumstances. And of course, we watched Savannah's new appeal yesterday. It was a very strange appeal, that I thought. Who is she talking to? She literally does seem to be addressing someone in particular. Is it the actual kidnapper, or is it the other person that supposedly came forward and said they weren't the kidnapper, but they knew who the kidnapper was? And who was Savannah talking to, addressing directly? And if somebody knows something about this case, why have they not come forward for $1 million reward?
Those tips, because I got a tip on February 2nd and we couldn't make heads or tails out of it, doesn't mean it's just dismissed.
Right.
It's something that's cataloged and put aside with one another. Maybe we've got a piece of evidence that can relate back to a tip. cell phone downloads might get us something. There's
Mhm.
all kinds of information on this case. And when the public slows down their calls, I don't think it's because they don't care. I think it's they've answered us. I think we had a plea from Savannah yesterday, and we share those sentiments. Somebody out there knows something.
Yeah.
We know that. We want that person to call us. And so we
Somebody out there definitely knows something. Maybe more than one person. But are they ever going to tell? You know, where is Nancy? Is she alive? Is she local to the area? Has she been taken off to Mexico, like was a lot of people think? Where is she? You know, she hasn't just disappeared in a puff of smoke, vaporized, or been beamed up to Starship Enterprise. She is somewhere. And although, you know, and sadly, this is the facts of it, 6 months later, we don't know how much will be left of Nancy or exactly, you know, presuming she's deceased. I can't see that she'd be alive somewhere, but maybe we could be, you know, I could be wrong. But where is she? You know, is she out in that desert somewhere? It's heartbreaking.
continuously say, if you know something, call the FBI hotline, call the sheriff's department tips line, but call.
Yeah. You mentioned Savannah. Have you spoken to her recently? She released that video yesterday, and I think a lot of people are probably wondering what the status is of the relationship between your office and the family.
Well, our relationship is a good relationship. I mean, these are tough times. But no, I've not spoken with Savannah recently. She has my contact number.
Yeah, and this is another thing. You know, he's a tough time. I haven't spoken to Savannah recently. We found out a little while ago. He said he had no contact with the Guthrie family whatsoever. Why is that? Strange, don't you think? Um, I don't know. In my experience with true crime, I mean, obviously, I'm in Spain and I'm originally from the UK. I don't know how America works. But isn't it normally that if somebody's missing, you would have unless you were a suspect, you would have contact with the sheriff's office? I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong.
You and the rest of the world seems to have. But she's very gracious, and she doesn't need to contact the sheriff. She needs a team that she's very well aware of that works with her, and she's in contact with them at any moment of day, any time of day that she needs to.
You also mentioned,
as is the rest of the family.
of course, you also mentioned the task force in one of your previous answers. Can you tell us kind of the status of that task force, how many members from the FBI, how many members from your office, and kind of how that has contributed to the investigation?
Well, so there's a core task force here. The FBI has task force all across the country.
Right.
We've been a member of their task force, a violent crime task force, for decades. This task force for the Guthrie case consists of a handful of detectives from my agency and a sergeant lieutenant and the chain of command, as well as several agents here locally. That task force, that core group, works together, and as information comes in, it may be something that requires attention from, say, Washington. Maybe it's, hey, this piece of digital evidence, we know that you guys have a team that's good at that. Can you send it out? And they'll send it there. Just as there may be some local pieces of information that the FBI here says, hey, we need to go and find this person and interview them. So it does this in terms of its growth in that. But the core membership has been there from day one, and they continue to meet daily.
Just for kind of a direct comparison from the beginning of the investigation, has it grown or shrunk again from the beginning period?
Oh, I think day one, it was the task force, the FBI Violent Crime Task Force, which we're a member of, right there at the scene. The membership were there. Our team was there. There's a lot was said from, I guess, Director Patel about how we delayed contacting them. I just think he's misinformed and doesn't understand that that evening when this event was actually the afternoon of the first one.
You know, so he mentions Patel there, Cash Patel. You know, there's this sort of bit of thing between him and the FBI. He's sort of trying to downplay it, but of course, Cash Patel said that if the FBI would have been brought in quicker, they might have got more video images, etc. I still think, I don't know about you, but have you noticed, like when he first started talking about this case, he was suggesting it was like the Saturday. He kept saying it was a Saturday, but it wasn't the Saturday, it was Sunday that Nancy was reported missing, and it was Sunday evening. He did the first press conference, if you like, outside Nancy's house. I do think he's been quite confusing with the things he's said. There's been a lot of, you know, I don't feel that we know the proper timeline. I really don't. When was Nancy first noticed to be missing? Because we're led to believe it's when she was supposed to turn up at a friend's house to do the virtual church service on Sunday. But I think Nanos, sometimes he says things that don't quite fit in or make sense.
We first learned of it.
Yeah.
Our detectives were called in after our search and rescue team recognized what they had, contacted our investigative teams. They immediately contacted the Violent Crime Task Force, and their representatives were there. They processed that scene early the next day, the very next day, within hours of that scene processing. I held a press conference. I think everybody has video of it, where myself and the special agent in charge from Phoenix and the agent in charge from Tucson are right there on stage with me to answer any questions. So the concept or the
Yeah, he did that press conference with the FBI, but he's never done one with the FBI since. He's never done a press conference since. Since then, his only press conferences, if you can even call them that, have been interviews with different podcasters, news stations like this one. Why is that? Why haven't they all stood there together? You know, it's very odd. I personally think it's very odd. The whole thing. He's like he's loving all these interviews, but there's no, you know, the FBI haven't been involved at all.
The representation that the FBI was held off, and boy, we wish we'd have been there early on. That's just not even accurate. They were there day one, just as my team was.
Just to follow up on that, because you're referencing Cash Patel's appearance on Fox News, where he had said that if the FBI had been brought in earlier, there could have been more video discovered. I'm wondering kind of more directly what your response is to that and what the status of your relationship is with specifically the FBI director.
Well, I don't know the FBI director, never met him. So my relationship is what we see or hear as you do.
Right.
So he's never met Cash Patel. Never met him. He doesn't know him.
On the news, but that's fine. He's a busy man. He's got a big job, just as I do.
See how he says that he's all ego, this guy, isn't he? He's got a big job, just like I do. We're big men doing big jobs. Oh, this is when I just don't like Nanos at all. He's so ego-driven. He's a busy man doing a big job, just like me.
What's more important is, what is my relationship, and more important than that, my team's relationship with the local FBI office here that we work with every day on all kinds of cases. It's a great relationship. Look, Director Patel, he information across the world probably, and it gets up. Sometimes that information is filtered. It's not with any kind of intent, ill intent, or anything. It just happens. So I think that Cash, Director Patel, heard information early on that just was inaccurate, and He certainly doesn't owe me an explanation or a question or anything. He's the director of the FBI. But when the information is put out there that's not accurate, I think it helps, it hurts the case. And so individuals like yourself to come out and ask for accurate information from me, I never have a problem answering.
And we appreciate you doing.
The Sharp Exchange contacted Nanos and he agreed to go on there.
You're going to be limited as to what you can say on this front. There's been a report that the back door and the back gate were propped open, reportedly with flower pots. Was that true? And if so, was that done for the intruder to make some kind of a faster exit?
So, again, a couple of questions there. First of all, you're right. I can't talk what's there. I know that's frustrating for everybody. I try to be.
It's understandable, I will say.
Media as I can.
Yeah. Now these things, these details that have come out, like that the back doors were propped open with plant pots. That's just one. Who has leaked that? If that is true, who has leaked it? And if it's not true, why can't they just say, no, that was not true? So it makes you think, because he sort of scoops around this a bit, makes you feel that it is true that the back doors were open with plant pots. Who has leaked that? You know, somebody's leaking information from this case. And they can't, you know, he's not going to comment on it because he'd be worrying about a future prosecution. But look, you can see he's really thinking about it, what to say, what. So to me, then, basically, what he is saying is, yes, they were propped open with plant pots, because if they weren't, wouldn't he just say, no, they weren't? You know, this is the reason that all these conspiracy theories are around this case, because we haven't got really a proper official timeline. We don't know officially, like, you know, we get all this thing of, you know, that whoever it was in the house for 40 minutes or this, that. We get all this conjecture, but we haven't had either the sheriff's office or the FBI saying to us, no, this is what happened.
And my community, but we do have to protect some of the integrity of the investigation. If that was the case or why that happened or anything, you know, that's all speculative, and we don't get into that. We investigate it, gather all the facts, put together a team, and try to work it from there.
There's also been, again, I know you might have the same answer here, but just in terms of the blood patterns, both inside and outside of the house, not necessarily am I asking you to confirm where the blood was, because I know you probably can't get into that, but did the location of the blood help your investigation in determining perhaps, you know, where she was taken to, or again, just anything that you can tell us there?
But, you know, again, I'm sorry. Why?
It's okay.
I'm not going to talk about the actual scene or anything of any of the location of evidence that was obtained. Again, my apologies, but I just
no
can't.
problem. No problem. Again, very understandable. 5 months ago with Elizabeth Vargas, you had said, and this is kind of, I think, you know, it's the uncomfortable and unfortunate question but I think it has to be asked. And that was, again, 5 months ago with Elizabeth Vargas on News Nation, you said you believe that Nancy Guthrie was still alive. I haven't seen you know, directly answer that recently. Can you tell us kind of what your analysis would be on that front right now?
You know, it's a question that I'm asked often. And I guess my answer to you would simply be this. I understand why people would say she's dead.
Yeah.
I get that. But where's the benefit in my believing she's dead when there's no proof of her death in front of me? I understand the investigation, all the thoughts of her whereabouts. Everybody has a right to have an opinion and voice it. But as the sheriff of Pima County, as the head of the law enforcement here in this community, what is the benefit of the sheriff saying she's dead?
Yeah,
if the family believes that there's hope that there's
It's
that
true
there's
what he's
that there's some
saying. I
chance that she
mean,
might still
you've
be
always
with us?
got to have hope. It just, I think we did in the beginning, but as time has gone on, it's difficult to have hope, isn't it, that she's still alive, and especially in view of the supposed ransom notes that said she was dead. If she's still alive, I mean, where is she? Who's looking after her? Who's getting her tablets for her and this, that, and the other? But I understand what he's saying. He's saying there's no benefit in him saying, maybe she's dead. But I don't know. You can avoid the question, of course. If he doesn't want to sort of say one thing or another, if he's asked, do you think Nancy's alive? He could just say, look, I can't answer that. So sad, isn't it, really?
Why should I crush that hope?
Right.
There's no evidence to show it. Trust me, if we find something that indicates a burial site or something of that nature, absolutely, we're going to share that. That's critical.
Well, he says that, but they're not actually even looking. They're not searching, are they? So they're not going to find anything, are they?
We're going to share it with the family. And so my personal beliefs, really, that's what they are. I believe that I'm going to support the Guthrie family every way possible. And if they believe she's alive, so do I.
In terms of some of the DNA, standard DNA testing, obviously it varies in terms of how long it takes. You said recently, though, that you still have a lot of DNA to go through and kind of assess the validity of it, if you will. Is the holdup now that it is forensic familial genealogy and you're kind of trying to, tick them off in kind of a family tree type setting to eliminate members of the family? Or I know you've said to an extent that all of them have been cleared. But the way that the Golden State Killer case was worked, for example, is there any comparisons from this case to that one?
So the DNA, first of all, I am no expert. In DNA, when I started 20 years ago, it was just breaking out. My team is way above me in discussing that with me.
Right.
They just get it and they understand it. And that makes me feel pretty comfortable in knowing the right people are working this case. But more important than just my investigators, it is the lab. Those are the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
And they have rules, just like courts. We have rules and procedures and policies we have to follow to keep the investigation credible.
Of course.
Labs are no different. They have their rules of science that they have to go through. So I think what you were asking is, are we at familial type of DNA, not just our genetic DNA?
Yeah.
Are we doing something to find maybe it's the second cousin that?
Yeah.
What I would tell you is both. We're doing all of it. And that's really the labs are doing it all. They're looking at genealogy, but they're also looking at specific pieces of evidence.
Well, that's interesting. They're checking into every part of the DNA, so that's good.
That they're hoping to get enough codi to say, this is who we're looking at.
And again, to your earlier comment about how you do still have a lot of DNA to progress through, are you able to quantify that at all as to how long it might take to get through the DNA that investigators and those on the scene have pulled?
Not really, not me. The labs may, but I think the labs, this science is so fast, all science, today's world, so fast moving.
Of course.
And they are looking at some pretty cool stuff out there, if you will, about DNA and how it can be used, not in just these cases, but in other scientific genealogy cases. So they're careful, as they should be. Absolutely nobody wants to arrest the wrong person. And so we have those, if you will, parameters that say, here's the guidelines. And we have to trust our labs to know those guidelines and not to push them, to allow them to do their job and come back to us and say, we think we're here, and we need to be over here.
Right.
Can you do this for us? Can you get us this? Is there any chance of this? It's probably more complex than we want to get into, but I'll say this. The communication with our labs is ongoing. It's daily. They know the technology. They know that, for example, a lab in Kansas might be on the verge of something new, groundbreaking over here, where there's a lab in LA that's on the groundbreaking. They're just working the case as a priority, and they're working it nationwide.
There was a reporter who recently read one of the notes, ransom notes that was on the record, and it referenced something to the effect of outside of Tucson. Setting aside the notes, obviously, the side that the FBI is handling, do you believe the person responsible for this could still very well be in the Tucson area?
Oh, absolutely. Could be, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we constantly talk about, we've got the same information you have, that the cartels took her, or somebody in New York has her, or where we hear that. I think the key for you to understand there is all of this information that's out there, we take it all very seriously.
Yeah.
And we have to. And we investigate every single lead until we can't follow it any further, or until we can and this adds to the frustration.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk of ransom notes, look at the number of ransom notes that have come in and led to arrest for fraud, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame, but that people want to do that, to take advantage of, or try to take advantage of a system. And it's also a shame that we have to stop what we're doing to try to figure out what this is about, but it's part of it.
Now, he said, look how many. Well, as far as I know, there's only been one false ransom note that's been picked up on. But anyway, the other thing he said is interesting. He said that I personally think the answers to this case are in Tucson, local. Whoever has done it, whatever they've done to Nancy, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so, because there's been no sort of investigations properly in Mexico and further away places. In my personal opinion, all the answers to this case lie close at home. I'm not saying her family did it. I'm saying, but somebody, whoever did it, in my opinion, they knew Nancy well. They knew the house well. They felt comfortable in that house. They weren't rushed. They weren't panicked. And Nancy, or Nancy's remains, are close by. That's my opinion. But we'll see one day.
It really is. And so every time somebody calls in with a ransom note, they need to know we're going to investigate it to its fullest. And should we find you, you will be charged and held accountable. I think a young man in California recently got sentenced 10 years or something like that. Just look, don't do that.
Yeah,
if I had anything to tell you, don't put yourself at risk there. We are working this very closely. We know the ransom notes that exist. We hand them to the FBI. They're experts in that field, and we keep up with what's going on there. But yeah, every note is taken extremely serious.
There was the tip that came in a little while ago about Nogales and Sonora in Mexico. I know you've commented on it before, but do you think there should have been perhaps a bigger or earlier effort to coordinate with the Mexican authorities?
Well, I don't know what earlier on was, or what you talk about coordination. We work here on the southern Arizona border. In fact, Pima County has the largest shared border with Mexico than any county in the nation, 126 miles. We have, not just with the FBI, but with DEA and ICE and others, task force members all across this county. And so we know when crimes occur that, yes, there's a chance that it may, somebody may try to get into Mexico, or We use our federal partners because who has those relationships? Typically DEA, ICE, HSI, FBI, and so we're constantly in touch with them. Without getting into, again, too much detail, we know of those existence, and we work with those agencies down there. When we get tips that I go and immediately gave that to the FBI, and they within hours learned that it was not related at all.
Okay. I want to go back to something that you mentioned before as well, because you had said that obviously with the ransom notes and, you know, people trying to profit off of it and stuff, it speaks to kind of this broader problem. And that is that when you have a case like this in the public eye, it can be helpful to an extent because you get all of the leads that you referenced earlier, but you also have people with bad motives and bad incentives. And in Pima County, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last before this happened, big example of a crime, or at least one that kind of captivated and got the nation's attention, was the shooting of Gabby Giffords. I wonder how, from your perspective, it has been having to deal with, say, the YouTubers who are trying to get into the scene. I know you've talked about that before, and just more broadly, again, some of the bad faith actors who have been involved here.
So, first of all, I headed up the investigation of the Giffords shooting. And we worked hand in hand, again, just like we did today, are doing today, with the FBI. That wasn't a whodunit, but certainly it was a very critical investigation and needed to be done, conducted properly. And to the point of here in Pima County, and these critical cases come up, and YouTubers and the media, you know, media's changed. I've been at this game since 1976, and we think of mainstream media, and then you also have now all the social media, and you have the YouTubers, if you will, or influencers. It's just constantly evolving. I can always get into the argument or discussion about ethics for journalists and this, that, but I think that's a better discussion had by people like yourself, mainstream media. When I talk about the YouTubers or those that have been in the neighborhood, I talk about them in regards that says you still have a level of professionalism you have to maintain. You can't just go into a community, a neighborhood, and start harassing people because they're...
Yeah, I agree with him up to a point, but I think what happened recently, you know, where people were arrested just for being on the street, I don't agree with that, especially in a place like America where you're supposed to be free, you know, land of the free and all that. I think that too much precedence was given on the neighbours' complaints. And much as I think it must have been bloody irritating having the YouTubers around and that. But at the end of the day, this culprit has not been caught yet. So it's not as if people were just hanging around being ghouls. They're trying to investigate. Maybe they are trying to grift, and maybe they are being sent money by their supporters or whatever. But, you know, that's how YouTube works. I didn't agree with the arrest of the YouTubers at all. You know, free speech. Yeah, you can't go up to someone's property and go on their property, but you can sit on the street. Nobody should be able to tell you can't sit on the street, and if you do, you're going to be arrested, in my opinion. But anyway, let me know what you think about that. But yeah, do you know where this has sort of stopped this video? There's something about me. Maybe it's my fault, but or maybe I'm looking too much into it, but it doesn't look like a nice man, does he? He has that sort of, it's got that evil look. Maybe I'm just imagining it. Tell me what you think.
They're tired of seeing you.
Yeah, of course.
They don't understand your position. And I get the First Amendment rights and all of those things, but I liken it to this. You live in an apartment complex, and you can have your music on as loud as you like during the daytime. But 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, 1 in the morning, it gets a little bit disruptive. It's no longer your right to listen to that music at that volume, or that
you have
disrupted the others. The same here for the YouTubers, and I've said this. If you can conduct yourself professionally and get in and out of the neighborhood, I have no problems with that. But when the neighbors call us continuously, literally, we did a study here to show in.
Yeah, but the neighbours are a pain. The neighbours are, look what the neighbours were doing. You know, that Sue Ellen, she was covering everything with dog excrement and cactus and whatever, so they couldn't stay at the place where they were allowed to be on the easement. You know, sometimes you have to look at what the neighbours are doing. Just because they're ringing up complaining about the streamers doesn't mean they're in the right. You know, I just feel it wasn't dealt with very well, but it was a bit gung-ho, wasn't it? I likened it to that, like the sheriff in Rambo, First Blood, you know, where the sheriff's saying to Sylvester Stallone, John Rambo, oh, just keep walking through our town. We don't want you in our town. You know, in fact, I'll give you a lift wherever you're going. You can't tell people just because you don't like them. You can't say to them, no, you can't stand here in a public place. That's my opinion, is, you know, you can't. And I think he gave too much credence to the neighbours, because a lot of the neighbours were a pain in the arse, to be honest.
In that neighborhood is a great neighborhood for us in terms of crime and relationships with the community.
Not really.
We had
a great neighborhood. Yeah, an 84-year-old woman was taken without anybody noticing, and all these people can do is complain about the streamers who are trying to find out what happened to her.
Probably 50 calls there the whole time, the last 6 months, and that's an average over 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
This year,
but she did
in those same 5, 6 months, it tripled. We had like 180, 200
because
calls.
they're a pain in the arse. And the thing is, Nancy disappeared. So honestly, I found it incredulous. If an 80-odd-year-old woman had gone missing from my neighbourhood, or anybody, you know, so any crime, and the culprit had not yet been apprehended, don't forget, that's the crux of this. You know, once the culprit's been apprehended, yeah, you don't want people hanging around. I agree with that. But these people are hanging around because nobody knows what happened to Nancy. And if I lived there, I'd be thinking, thank God there's people around here, you know, because I'd be terrified.
It is a disruption to the neighborhood. I think that neighborhood originally allowed them into their homes. They allowed them to sit in their drives. They took them in understanding that you have an important.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. It will be a difficult day, and it was a difficult day yesterday talking about it and that, and it's very emotional. But you know what? It'll soon be over. But thank you.
Job to do, and your job helps me get my job done.
Yeah.
But beyond that, after a while, it was a nuisance. And when the neighbors asked those to leave, that most did. A very few, very small percentage refused and really got in the face of the neighbors. It just got ugly. And I still have a job to do.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to help you get your job accomplished, I ask that you be respectful to my community. And that's all that was.
Of course. I just want to conclude our interview here by asking you about going back to Savannah Guthrie, because I mean, that is really the Guthrie family, the ones who have been facing this unimaginable tragedy, and in Savannah's case, having to do it in front of the entire world, which, you know, no one can really imagine what that would be like. In terms of, you know, the pace, by a degree where, you know, the Guthrie family is frustrated with not just your department, but some of the other law enforcement agencies, you know, in terms of wanting it to move faster.
Well, I'm sure they're like everybody, right? We've all been in situations where we want right now. I'm no different. I'm sure that still exists with them. But I don't believe, in fact, I have zero indication that the family is frustrated with law enforcement and really angry with us. In fact, I believe the opposite. I believe that They know that we too have some challenges to overcome, that we too have a difficult task in front of us. But that task doesn't, as compassionate as we want to be, we still have to stay focused on what's in front of us. And someday, hopefully soon, we'll get the resolution that we're looking for and wanting on this case. But I just kind of ask the public, the media, even the family to understand and know that we're working in this case every single day. I check in with my team pretty much regularly, at least weekly, if not daily sometimes. In fact, we have a meeting here this afternoon. And it's
at least weekly. What? That's the only, what, weekly? Sorry, that's crapo. If that was my mum who'd gone missing, I would want you to get in touch with your team more than weekly. He said, oh, sometimes daily. It should be daily. This is a live investigation. What's he saying? Weekly. So once a week, he checks in with his team about Nancy. What load of crap.
Really, not that I have this great mind and need to know all this information to solve the case.
Right.
What I'm checking in on is their stamina, their energy, and I'm going in there with some reservations that, man, I hope I'm not seeing them shoulders slumping and they're feeling defeated. To the contrary,
right.
Every time I meet with this team, they are pumped. They are excited and energetic, and every lead they get, they are working hard. And so I guess what I would tell people is, look, it is frustrating for you because you don't know what we know.
Yeah.
The family is certainly frustrating to them, but it's also frustrating to our teams. But they continue to put the white noise aside. I tell them, I got to be a duck. Got to let it roll off me. And we just keep working. And so that's what we do.
All right. We will leave it there. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, thanks so much for the time. Really.
So thank you for that interview. Sharp exchange. It was certainly interesting. Very interesting. I thought he did a good job of interviewing Nanos without upsetting him, because Nanos would be the person, I'd find it hard not to upset him, I think. It's just like what he was saying there. Oh, I check in at least once a week. Once a week? What? Once a week? Is that it? Anyway, maybe he feels that he only has to check in once a week because he's got a team dealing with it. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But to me, he's full of crap, this guy. I'm trying to think better of him, but it's not working for me. You let me know what you think. I'd like to think better of him and hope that he's doing something constructive, but I just don't feel it. But anyway, so yeah, it was a good interview. It was interesting. So apparently there's all this DNA examination going on and blah, 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 blah. But really, we didn't learn anything new, did we, out of that interview? I don't think either he doesn't know anything new or there's nothing new he can say. I mean, if he only checks in once a week, I don't think he gives a shit, to be honest. As far as he's concerned, he'll love to take, when this case is finally solved, he'll be right there taking credit for it, I'm sure. But really, he's not interested, is he? He's not interested. He's got bigger fish to fry. Don't think he cares, really. I personally don't think he cares. And I think it says a lot that he's not even in touch with the Guthrie family, he says. Anyway, let me know what you think. It's probably not a good day for me to do critiques because obviously very shortly, within a couple of hours, I will be sadly watching my sister's funeral by live link. I'll be talking about some of the tributes to her and everything on the members live tomorrow night. I want to thank Pete. I've had so many lovely messages and I have communicated them to my family as well, to know, it's so lovely when people who are strangers, really, my followers, you didn't know my sister, but you've been so kind in the lovely things you've said about her, and just the comfort that you've sent. I've had emails, I've had condolence cards even. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, I'm going to go and put something bright on, because she wanted people to dress, brightly, bright colours, etc. She didn't want people to be in black. I think when it comes to, because it will happen one day, when it comes to my funeral, I think I want everyone to wear black. I know this is quite common. I say, people say, wear bright colours and that. I think I want everyone to wear black and cry all the way through. Now, when they go to the wake afterwards, that's a different matter. I want people to have a good time at the wake. I know I'm so sad that I can't be there to go, not only at the funeral, but then everybody getting together afterwards. My family are loud. It'll be raucous. They'll all be talking about stories about Sue, funny stories, daft things she did, like you do at funerals. 1 minute you're laughing, next minute you're crying, and I'll miss out on that, very sadly. I'd like to be with my family, but maybe we'll get a FaceTime in or something, but it's not the same as being there, is it? Okay, thank you for caring about my sister. Those of you who left such good comments, lovely caring comments, thank you so much. Yes, Sarah, maybe Nanos thinks a young person might not be as aggressive. Strange, isn't it, that you let that young lad, I mean, he was good, it's a good interview, and I'm not criticising the lad at all, but it's strange that Nanos let him interview him. I think it might be because he's a Liberal as well. Judging by the other interviews he's done, does he think he'd be sympathetic politically? I just don't know. But thank you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for caring about Nancy. Thank you for caring about my sister. Thank you for caring about me. It's really sweet to know that people send out such positive thoughts. I'll be a bit more back to normal tomorrow. Yeah, I won't be back on today, that's for sure. Though I've got lots of things I want to talk to you about, but it'll be tomorrow. And there will be members live tomorrow. So thank you to all there's a few of you that have joined recently. Thank you. Usual, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing, thank you for sharing, thank you for hyping, thank you for all those good things you do that make make it worth it for me to do my channel. And special thanks to my members, those who buy Ko-fis, those who send PayPals, buy merchandise. Thank you so much. I love you all so much. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, look, the dog's coming up. As soon as I start saying that, the dog comes up. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.